This is Hannibal from thehannibaltv.com, and this is my very first The Hannibal TV show here on the Burner Network, Zingo TV, channel 251. And if you don't get Zingo TV, you can download both the Barn Burner TV and Zingo TV apps on their respective app store, iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both of the apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is also on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all the smart TVs 2016 and onward. And I would like to thank the North American Wrestling Alliance for sponsoring today's episode of the show. I really appreciate it. And we are going to have two guests from the North American Wrestling Alliance on later today, as well as a MMA expert, the King of Connecticut. But my first guest is none other than a corporate game show comic. He's appeared on many different comedy shows on TV over the years. He's a former wrestling commentator, manager. He's worked with Psycho Sid, Mankind. The list goes on and on. He's going to tell us all about it. Jimmy Mack from Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is the hot spot for Canadian professional wrestlers right now, with Kenny Omega, Don Callis, and Chris Jericho pretty much taking over various companies. How are you today?
I'm doing. Can you hear me okay? Hang on. We're safe, aren't we?
We're safe.
We're social distancing right now.
I guess normally, if it wasn't for COVID, we could have a studio in Toronto and all kinds of Jerry Springer type stuff could happen. So
all time. I really, I apologize with my editing background. I have to use a white wall, but you got some fancy stuff behind you there. I like
this. Is my backyard. I'm actually outside right now here in Ottawa, Canada. And this is my backyard. I'm glad you like it.
I love it. I just want to say, before we even get into anything right now, I just want to congratulate you on getting this new sort of show going and the dynamics. You've worked hard to do what you've done, and you've done a fantastic job through COVID. So from me to you, I really, really am congratulating you, and I wish you the biggest success ever, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. A new platform for us. We're going to reach new viewers. And of course, on our YouTube channel, The Hannibal TV, we're over 150 million video views now. We just passed 225,000 subscribers. So hopefully by this time next year, with all the working relationships I'm developing, we can hit that 1 million subscriber mark.
You'll get there, brother. You'll get there.
I
apologize for losing viewers now that I'm on, but hey, you know what? It'll be okay.
You actually contributed to my channel with an interview. This is not going to be really that much of an interview, but one story I liked that you told me that maybe you could share with us on this platform is The Undertaker, since he's having his retirement ceremony at Survivor Series coming up. You witnessed him actually smash a bottle at a bar. Maybe you could share with us that story.
So this, I'll just backtrack. So the reason I got to know a lot of those characters was I did a lot of wrestling at the time, different wrestling impressions and costume changes in my own stand-up show. But so that particular night, I had been there and hanging out with Undertaker, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, obviously, and all those guys. And I wasn't really near Undertaker. I had done the impression for him earlier, and he kind of stone-faced me and walked away, and you think he's angry. He just has that demeanor, but he was always a scary-looking guy. But yeah, Sword bar closes 2 a.m., and a brouhaha starts in the middle of this bar. It was the Polo Park Inn at the time here.
Let me guess, Winnipeg?
In Winnipeg, yeah, the famous Polo Park Inn. Yeah, it's where you walk in and they actually ask you if you have any weapons. If you say no, they open a drawer and say, well, take one with you. You'll need it. Type of bar. But this big thing starts with in the middle of sort of the exit area and no one can control it. And Undertaker he's got a beer glass in his hand, and he stands up and he smashes it and just stood there, and everyone sort of turned around, and that was the end of the fight. Like, nobody was getting involved with Undertaker. Like, if you got Undertaker mad, we better leave. And they just dispersed. It was over. Just like that. Didn't have to say a word.
Now, as a longtime wrestling fan, do you think he's really, really retired? Because I heard his wife doesn't even believe that he's going to call it quits, and they desperately need stars.
They need something with personality, and unfortunately, as dry a personality as he is, that's his success, I think. And he does have a personality. So, you know as well as I do, once the showbiz / wrestling is in your veins, and it does course through his veins, there has to be something for him next. There just has to be, whether it's, to me, in the form of coming back as a wrestler or not, who knows. I just finished watching that the story on Paul Bearer, of course, right? And it just talked about how Paul Bearer like made him that character even better. And I think that if he does come back in a capacity that's not a wrestler per se, maybe he comes back as a manager sort of role. You know, that entrance and that bong is going to get people popping, right? And they need something, even though it's fake popped in right now without an audience, it's still going to get people viewing it.
I don't know if he can be taken as serious anymore, because when we saw the behind the scenes episodes that they did there with the Undertaker at home, it was clear his wife wears the pants in the family.
Yeah, I don't want to say where she does wear the pants, where the family jewels are kept in a casket or in an urn, maybe somewhere. He lost them somewhere. And
I think that's his third wife as well. So
yeah,
who knows?
The only thing, maybe he may, if he just, I still think if you can bring him back at some point, regardless of what he can do in ring, if he came to the ring, just his presence, I think, would help some of these younger guys. I guess when you're out of the business, well, even you have your own reputation, I'm sure, around the area you're in. And when you walk in, younger guys look up to you, man. So that's the Undertaker role. I think he comes back, he's looked up to, he sort of maybe teaches them the old way to entertain. And maybe that could help these guys, because they're just lost. I think they're lost.
Speaking of which, everyone that watches me at youtube.com/TheHannibalTV knows that I don't actually watch wrestling anymore. I just follow the news because I'm a reporter now and an interviewer. But you actually tortured yourself through All Elite Wrestling this week, I guess, to support your fellow Winnipeggers. And you said you didn't, it was actually quite torturous.
It was. And you know what? I figured, okay, I'm coming back on Hannibal here. I got to impress him that I actually watched something. And now you're leaking out that you're not watching anything. So now I really feel like I should.
I know what's going on, though. I do know what's going on.
So this is my problem with AEW. I think it started out like a cannonball. I think we all tuned in and thought they're putting together a great product. All of a sudden, hey, this is great. It's kind of old school mixed in with the new school. And for example, I watch, and this pains me to say because I just can't see the talent through my eyelids closing to fall asleep. But Orange Cassidy, to me, I don't even know how you can watch him. I don't know how anybody can think that's entertaining. That means I could get in the ring right now and move as slow to do what he's doing. And I know it takes talent to move slow to pull off moves, but it's just boring. And I think it really stymies the other wrestler who's against them. Because if you're used to working fast and you come into a slow motion situation, like you see the moves now. That, to me, that's the problem. Kayfabe is over. So you see what's happening and they're setting it up. And now you almost see guys talking to each other. And that's torturous to me.
Yeah, I see when the bits that I have seen of AEW, I saw an Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho match, and Chris Jericho's flying around for this little 120-pound guy, and it just looked like they were going through choreographed spot after choreographed spot, and it looked like just a dance. It didn't get my interest at all, and Orange Cassidy looks like a ninth grader, basically, that doesn't, not the football player ninth grader either, just your average ninth grader. So
This is what kills me the most, coming from your era, or even where I'm coming back from. Like, does it hurt some of these guys to actually do weights? I'm just asking.
I don't understand it. But speaking of which, you do a great Hulk Hogan impression. Some people, you were actually used in the publicity when I announced that we were going to do this, the Hannibal TV show for the first time. And it's actually you dressed up as Hulk Hogan. Yeah. And many people messaged me saying, shame on you, Hannibal. You're using Hulk Hogan's image to make it seem like he's going to be on the show. The first clue is your arm tattoos.
Yeah.
But could we hear some Hulk Hogan?
Well, I can close your show with a Hogan promo. How about I play this teaser now?
Sure.
And we close you out rather than, I might have to rip my shirt. I don't know. Is it worth the $5?
That's your Scott Hall shirt. And
yeah,
you talked about this in our other interview that people can look up, Jimmy Mack on the Hannibal TV. You actually have a friendship with Scott Hall, or you had one at one point. I know you're probably not exchanging Christmas cards.
Not any longer. We did for the longest time, but with the family, of course. But yeah, now it's lost, but which is fine. But I value the friendship that we had, and that was through comedy and radio. And Scott was always a very generous person. I don't know how he was outside of, let's say, Winnipeg or Vancouver when I was hanging out with those guys. But he was a great guy. Like, he does have a heart of gold. And I think that if he can stay where he is sober, I mean, I think he's doing some appearances now over online and doing some signings. And I think there's another guy who could, we're talking about Jericho and Orange Cassidy. And if you look, to me, Jericho has the talent, but how long and how old do you want to be to continue trying to sell these guys, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to put him over. Like, if you look back at Razor Ramon and 1, 2, 3 Kid, there's no way that Waltman should have beat Scott, but Scott, his popularity never failed him, which is why I don't think they ever needed a belt on him that often. People complained that he didn't have a belt in WCW, except he had tag team, I think, at one point, but he doesn't need a belt. He had that popularity, right? And to me, Jericho is trying to push Orange Cassidy, and people aren't buying the bit. People bought 1, 2, 3 Kid over Hall, and that pushed Waltman over the edge, right? And Scott became bigger. So I think those guys are missing in today's, like Jericho. He's still got he's not going to lose the personality.
No, but he's given up on really. He just does his own thing. It's mostly comedy, and then he goes on his podcast, often with his opponent, and they dissect how they put a match together. So it's like the magician showing all of his tricks. Yeah. Why should I care? You're just collecting a large paycheck and having fun, which is fine. I wish we all could do that. But you have a pretty good Scott Hall impression. What would Scott Hall think about Orange Cassidy?
Hey, Chico, why don't you come back here and don't sing it, bring it.
You also do a Macho Man, who we all
here
know.
We go. Now we love the shades. Where are the shades?
You actually, he heard your impression, and I think you appeared once back when WBF was still around, the World Bodybuilding Federation.
And actually,
that story.
The day I met Savage, there was a bodybuilding show here in Winnipeg, and I appeared as this Randy Savage character because WBF was part of the World Bodybuilding Federation and a WWF spinoff at the time. So I appeared as Savage. And the night I met Savage here, it was interesting because I was told to get my gimmick on and come around the corner after he was done this signing. And he looked at me and we went over and he did the old handshake like he did with Hogan kind of thing. And he went and he kind of looked at me and goes, "You're the guy that I was reading about in the magazine." So he always did talk like that to an extreme, right? But not so much like his, "Oh yeah, what you gonna do when I come down there and take care of business?" Dig it. He wasn't, that was his character, of course, in the ring, but off camera. And the nicest thing about him was he liked it so much, and he knew I did the act with it. He looked at the jacket. I remember him going around checking all the fringes out, And he was like, oh, yeah, not bad, not bad. And then he said, just do me one favor and don't swear as us. And I thought that was a sort of a torch passed off to say he gave me the blessing to keep doing it. But because of all the work that he did with kids, he just didn't want the image of a stand-up comic tarnishing it by swearing during a show. And I did keep that promise to him that I never did swear during my act as Savage.
I interviewed Diamond Dallas Page earlier today. I haven't released it yet.
Yeah.
He actually does an excellent Macho Man Randy Savage impression. And he showed that in the interview. He also does a good Dusty Rhodes.
Oh, I heard him do a Dusty Rhodes. Yeah. Now here's a question. So have you started your stretching for the yoga challenge?
Yeah, I still haven't fully accepted it, but I probably will if he's gonna come on and appear on my youtube.com/the Hannibal TV show again. Yes, I'll probably do it. I've never really done yoga, but I'll give it a shot. I
heard vanilla's pretty good.
Vanilla?
Yeah, vanilla yogurt. Yeah.
It'd be more. Very funny. Yeah. I'm a little slow.
Yeah. Just what you should do is learn how to do the splits, and then he'll know you've been doing his yoga.
Well, I do stretch, obviously. I am an undefeated kickboxer in 3 exhibition fights, so I do my kicking stretches, but I think yoga might be a little more compelling if it was in a class full of ladies in their Lululemon pants in front of me. And
well, you see, that's the problem. If you're doing it with maybe if you are doing with a room full, the wrong things are stretching.
How are the groupies for comedians, by the way? I always ask wrestlers how the groupie situation is, and it was pretty wild back in the 80s and even the 70s. It's kind of, they're still around now, but to a lesser extent. How is it with the comedy people? Well,
it's tough because the rooms are closed, but you can see behind me the lineup. It all depends. I think it's much like if, like, let's say, for example, for you or a wrestler or anything, I think the lure of the character, the stage character, is who they're after, right? And sometimes they want you to play that character outside of a show, but they don't realize that you're not that character all the time, right? So I think comedy is a little more difficult in a sense of groupies situation. But I've always said, if you pick up a guitar and plunk it once, they're lined up. But pick up a microphone and tell a joke. Don't tell me sense of humor is number 1 on anybody's list, because it's definitely not. It's picking up a guitar and singing.
It definitely helps, though.
Yeah.
With some of the girls, although I'm sure Joe Rogan, he's happily married, but I'm sure if he wanted groupies with how popular he is these days, it wouldn't be any issues. Doesn't he have $100 million agreement with Spotify?
But see, that's a different situation. You're talking about a guy, like I toured Estevan, Saskatchewan. I was just happy that they had teeth.
What's the dirtiest town you've ever been in, as far? Because for me, wrestling, it was on an Indian reserve in Saskatchewan. There was literally horse piss on the gymnasium floor, horse urine when we came in, and diapers in the shower area. It was extremely gross.
That sounds like Vanderhoof, British Columbia. It was, it was one of those tours where you go to the room, and it's literally a strip club. And then the last stripper stops and they're like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Jimmy Mack. Oh, great. Like, thank you very much. Like, now I have, 30 guys in front of you that aren't there to see you whatsoever. So Vanderhoof was pretty bad. And I would have to say Grand Prairie, Alberta was pretty nasty too. But for different reasons.
I've never been that far up there, but that's where the oil fields are, I guess.
Yeah.
And crazy. I hear the stories about the drugs some of those guys do on their days off and even on their days on.
I'm assuming working in the oil fields, they need something to keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you had I'm pretty good friends with Sid Vicious. I have a couple of really popular interviews with him on my the Hannibal TV YouTube channel, but you had a bit of a rib played on you involving Sid at one point after a WWE card. Could you share that story with us?
Yeah, he again. I was hanging out with Hall, and just to set it up, we're at the dinner table in a hotel. And again, it was back in the day, kayfabe was real. So I was with all the heels technically, and Bret Hart.
Oh God! Gotta run in. It's the King of Connecticut, Matthew Grandin.
What happened?
He's supposed to be talking to us about Anderson Silva, former MMA fighter. Matthew is a former MMA fighter himself and an author and a wrestling personality.
Nice.
Where are you?
What's going on? We are here at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I have a beautiful fighter with me from 864 Fighting Championships, back when I worked for them. Holly Sims, one hell of a striker, one hell of a kickboxer. And we are ready to rock and roll. Congratulations on the new TV show, brother.
Woo! Wow, you look great for a fighter. You look amazing. You must not have taken much damage.
What are you trying to say about the buddy?
She thought you were talking to me.
No. Oh, yeah, both.
I do damage.
She gives the damage.
I don't take it, I do it.
We are going to move to a better location. Let's go down where they can hear us. Everything can hear us. There's a band playing where we're at. We're going to come over here where you can hear us better.
All right, Jimmy, we'll finish this story after we're done. The reason we had Matthew on, he's an MMA expert. He's a manager of MMA fighters like Phil Baroni and Stephan Bonner. And there's rumors, has Anderson Silva retired or not? UFC has been pretty rude to him. Can you hear us? You're partying down in Myrtle Beach. How?
Yes. Yes, we hear you great. We're going to come down here by the docks where we can get better sound and you can hear us better. We'll come down here by the boats.
Maybe she can get her bikini on. If you're going by the water, could she get her bikini on?
It's too cold. It is
kind of chilly out here tonight, but she designs bikinis.
I do design bikinis. I need a check for 1.4 million if y'all want me.
So I got to tell you, Anderson Silva, absolutely. And it goes back to the fact that the UFC has never really respected their veteran fighters. And I go back to a guy I knew well, Evan Tanner, who died out in the desert. And the UFC didn't do much at all. He was their former world middleweight champion. Didn't do much at all to honor his memory. They've never done a lot to help those that built the sport. And it's unfortunate. It really is. You know, I look at professional athletes like football players, baseball players, they get pensions. We fighters don't get pensions, even when you rise up to the very top with the UFC. So absolutely, Anderson Silva had an amazing career. He was unstoppable. At one point, his tie clinch was impenetrable. You mentioned that I managed Stephan Bonner, the American Psycho. Even the American Psycho couldn't deal with it. And like everybody else, Matt Hughes, Randy Couture, my good buddy Mark Coleman, all the legends eventually start losing, and they should be respected. And I think that Khabib made the best choice, and hopefully he'll stick with it, to go out on top and not tarnish his legacy.
Do you think we'll see Anderson in Bellator?
Well, it's interesting because I have a unique perspective on that. I worked in marketing. I was a prime marketing consultant for Bellator back when they were on Spike TV, the end of Bjorn Rebbe's tenure. And I wrote the business plan, the marketing plan with two other guys that we called the Rolling Stones philosophy, which was perfect for Anderson Silva, which meant you take the top tier fighters from UFC at the end of their career, like the Rolling Stones, and you have them headline and you build the undercard fighters. Go back, if any of the fans haven't seen it, and watch how brilliant it was what we did when Bonner came in to Bellator. I mean, it was better than any pro wrestling promo that you'd ever seen there in the cage with Tito Ortiz. Go back and watch it. That was fantastic. That was the only time that Bellator beat UFC head-to-head in the ratings. And I think that they're kind of grown tired under Coker's reign of that model, and they're looking for the newer stars, and they kind of abandoned that Rolling Stones philosophy. And it's too bad for Anderson Silva, because should he want to fight again, and I think at 45 years old, he probably shouldn't, and we should go back in time and say he's never been the same fighter after his leg was split literally in half years ago. He was never the same fighter after that, but he should still be respected, and I'd love to see him in Bellator.
Yeah, I would too.
You know, if it was booked right.
Well, the last guy I'll ask you about here, Matthew, I want to ask you, I'm sure you saw the Jake Hager fight, or whatever the hell his name is, Jack Swagger, against the guy I interviewed, that I believe got the better of him. He definitely looked a lot better after the fight. What's your opinion on that fight?
Well, I think there's no doubt that Bellator wants to push Jack Swagger, Jake Hager. There's no doubt about it. And he's a name guy. You know, let's face it. You know, he gets ratings. So I think that definitely has to be factored into it. I'm surprised that they're kind of feeding him tomato cans, that he hasn't been able to kick the cans. You know, he had that one fight that he lost by disqualification, and now this fight. You know, I'll go back to something that Gerald Briscoe told me, who recruited him into WWE. If you remember, he wrestled for University of Oklahoma. And Jerry Briscoe told me that Jack Swagger, Jake Hager, was an extremely lazy guy. That's how he put it. He said he is very, very lazy.
Interesting. Well, I think you better go catch up to your girl there. Thanks for joining us, and maybe we'll catch you again with another MMA report.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Good luck on the new show. Outstanding, brother. You guys have a good night.
Later, man.
Yeah, man. So as you were saying before before Matthew came on, you were telling us about Psycho Sid. Before
then, I want to just ask you a question. Going back to your buddy here, who was just talking about, you know, fighters and everything, they don't have the pension, they don't have any of that going on. What do you think about the Zelina Vega thing?
The Zelina Vega thing, I think that...
you know what I'm talking about, though? Sorry?
Yeah, because she refused to close her Twitch and fans-only account.
And she's making more money doing that, and now she says... she's believing in a union. So what are your thoughts on that? Let's get some hair up on you.
Well, no, I think that she's better off going to her lawyer about that and having her lawyer see if WWE breached anything in the contract, because if there was a union, that wouldn't necessarily fix it any faster.
But they would be able to keep their names, would they not? Their personas. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I think Vince is just, you know, angry because he's not getting a piece of that Twitch. But I would look at it as, hey, they love her. Obviously, she's loved. She's making money at what she's doing, and we're getting her cheap.
Right.
Maybe that's how he could look at it.
It can go, there's benefits and negatives to the union, but right now we have our other two guests from the new, well, it's not new, it's being relaunched December the 19th at the historic Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, Florida, where Hulk Hogan turned heel. Tony Capone, the CEO of the NAWA, along with Kyle, who is the creative director, and he helps with promotion for the NAWA. So welcome to the Hannibal TV show, Tony. How are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on your show, and thank you very much for inviting me tonight.
And thank you so much for sponsoring it too. At the start of the hour, the Tony and the North American Wrestling Alliance, we already mentioned, sponsored tonight's show. So I really appreciate that. And this is a company that helped launch the careers of Taz and countless other stars in the late 80s, early 90s. Could you tell us a bit about the history of the company, why you stopped promoting, and now why you're bringing it back with this huge show December 19th?
I mean, long story short, I got back into the business in 87, and I was introduced by SD Jones, long story short, and had this vision always of being a promoter. And it was actually Hercules Hernandez who sat me down once and said, it's a different road. Either you want to be a wrestler, a fan, or a promoter. And he says, what's your goal? And I said, it is to be a promoter. And that's when he, as a former WWF superstar, just left TV, took me under his wing and cultivated what I did with Herb Abrams at UWF that I co-promoted for almost 2 years directly. I cultivated all that together, and between what I learned from Herb and Hercules, bought the best possible shows out there. And our office is actually 20 minutes south of WWE headquarters. So we're technically in their backyard. So whenever someone would leave WWF, back in the days, they would call me directly, and we were in and out for a while. In 92, 93, we had TV nationwide on Sports Channel America. And after that, we had, if you want to say behind the scenes issue with ECW when they first started, when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. And in 93 or so, late 93 into 94, I ended up losing my camera crew and half my guys, Taz, Dreamer, Public Enemy, Johnny Rotten, Big Guido, Little Guido, they all left. And, it took about 3-4 years to get back. And we relaunched around 97, taking our time. And at that point, ECW was going through a major change. And I was able to get Sandman and Tony DeVito back that worked for me before. And, and then in 99 at the iconic Slam Jam, we had Shane Douglas under a mask, and came out and became the NAWA heavyweight champion at the time. And he was actually the current ECW. And basically we have on tape that's going to come out where he just takes the ECW belt and throws it in the garbage. It's an iconic event. And that show, Bruno Sammartino was our commissioner for 3.5 years, and an honor just for Bruno to come on board. But my whole career has been WWF related outside of independence. Every wrestler that's worked for the company, probably 85% were all WWF former superstars, going back to Dominic DeNucci, which is late 70s, mid 70s, to SD Jones, Nikolai Volkov, Ravishing Rick Rude, Macho Man. The Tony Atlas. There's just so many guys that were part of this company, at one point. And the history speaks for itself, So fast forwarding now, we were running till about 2003, 2004 on a full-time basis. Took some personal time off for certain things in general, but we're always running in the New York area, the tri-state area for the most part. And, personally in 2016, that was one of my last shows with Tony Atlas and Jimmy Snuka back in the days. I had a personal injury. I ended up losing my leg below the knee, so I have a prosthetic now. And as I was sitting back and going through this whole depressed state of what's going on, believe it or not, Cindy Snow was one of the first persons that reached out to me. It's you got so much history here, so much on your catalog. And she was an inner support that's really just go out there. And I know she was on last night, and I have so much love for her for inspiring me as a person to get back into it. So this isn't something we just thought about now. This has been about 1.5 years, 2 years in the making. And, the pandemic actually shut everything down. And as a lot of people are aware, the East Coast of the United States is pretty much on total lockdown. And with our association with Fight TV, it all developed from East Coast. And then, they mentioned Florida and gave me a couple locations, and we ended up in the iconic, Ocean Center. And we have a long-term deal right now with Fight TV exclusively. And we're debuting a TV programming starting January 7th, Thursday night, which is called NAWA Thursday Night Fight. And that's NAWA with Fight TV together. And a lot of respect for them, too, to stepping up to the plate, but they know the history. The deal that I have with them is an exclusive deal. And I like to thank the owners of the company for really reaching out and making this merger together, because it is sort of a merger to a degree. Most of our events are going to be through Fight TV on pay-per-views, and right now we're basically running, I would say, every 6 weeks right now, like clockwork. It's hard to get arenas, and most arenas I'm taking right now, you're still paying full rent with guarantees of maybe 25 people, but it's not about the people. I mean, we have the Fight TV part of it, but like I told you before, if we have one person or 10,000 people, the show's still going on. So it's not a matter of that. The more the merrier, and I'm optimistic. So I do believe this is going to pass very soon, and I'm just going forward in the 2021 calendar as everything's on track. And in conjunction to that, just in the last 24 hours, we just signed a building in North Carolina. It's going to be February 13th, our comeback after the December event. And it's going to be at the iconic Dorton Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina, where the Crockett's ran for who knows how many years. And we just finalized a pretty long-term deal with them. So we'll be in Raleigh, North Carolina, starting in February. So that's the fast version of it, as much as I can. But there's so much history there, and this company would not be here if it was not treated with respect for the guys, and the guys treated me back with respect. And I think as a former wrestler, I treat the guys as if I'm booking. I am the booker, so I'm treating them like I would want to be treated. I don't believe nowadays where guys are $20 guys busting into backs, whatever the case is. I have actually neck damage, lower back damage. I have nerve damage in my hands. I'm not going out there for $20 or $50. So I'm trying to give a pay scale that the talent deserves, because they don't think at it when they're young, but when they get older, it's going to affect your body, so I'm trying to give them that vision up front, like, hey, you're worth more, to try to bring the standard up across the United States, if not internationally, in a nutshell.
Right. And as you said, you don't really care how many people are there. Obviously, more is better. But WWE is doing shows with the Thunderdome. AEW has small crowds these days. Impact doesn't have anyone. So this is just part of the COVID situation. But you're confident as we get closer. We're still a month out. It's December 19th. People are going to catch the fever, and you got Gangrel, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Kevin Sullivan with the Blood Hunter, Jimmy Hart, the Dirty Blondes, so many wrestlers, which you could fill us in on more.
I mean, to be honest with you, just to go back a second, we were planning on running early 2020. And as you know, the pandemic took place, and I refused as an organization with the people behind me to throw a show without an audience. To me, it's just not the same. And that was one reason why we tried to wait as long as we can. And, the event in Florida is only 60 days, I think, in the making. It was like not a last minute thing, but it was being very optimistic that things were going to open up in general, and so far, things look good. Florida has a lighter restriction. The arena is a 9,000 seat arena, but they're allowing almost 3,000 people, 2,800 approximately, which is a nice house, and it depends. It's close to the holidays. That's a negative, but people are starving for entertainment. I don't care what kind of entertainment. That's a plus. So, and pricing is fairly priced where we're not raping anybody. You could go there, family of four, have a good night and not break the bank, almost like if you go into a movie, so there was a lot involved. In regards to talent, I'm trying to get the best of the best that's out there on the independent circuit for the most part. And that's like, for example, Cahagas and Chase Stevens and, the guys that I can work with on a long-term level. From MLW, we're in final negotiation with the Dirty Blondes to come on board full-time, and they're actually committed to the company as we speak. And as you know, your guest yesterday, Amber Nova. Amber is, what a sweetheart. I mean, she's really, to me, what I call like an unexposed talent that's been out there that knows how to wrestle, but never was given really that major opportunity that she should have had already, so we're trying to go out there and just grab the best of the best. And, that's partially with Lindsay Snow also, who's just on AEW Dark. I'm hoping that something turns out to be a long-term deal with her that we're speaking about right now. And it's the same thing, even with Harry Smith, he's on MLW till mid-December on the contract. So there can't be any major negotiations because it's a breach of agreement, so it's trending. But when I do searches, I try to find, and I don't care if it's United States, Canada, England, I'm reaching out to all countries and trying to get the best of the best. And as we progress and things open up with other countries, you'll see superstars from other countries involved in the United States. And I don't want to mention what countries or what people, but there is contact right now that if the pandemic was not here, this would be a heavy international show with guys from all different countries involved.
And Lindsay
Hannibal
is actually going to be on my the Hannibal TV channel later tonight. She's also involved with United Wrestling Network, and as you mentioned, AEW. So she's going to be a great opponent for Amber Nova. Jimmy, did you have any questions for Tony? Because Jimmy's a comedian, but he's a big wrestling fan as well.
Well, I got one for Tony. If you need kind of a chubby old guy who's willing to do some managerial roles for your wrestlers, I'm always available here in Canada. And Hannibal tried to get me into AEW and WWE already.
Jimmy, I'll tell you a fair story. You know, a lot of people don't know this. My background is not just wrestling. When I graduated high school in '83, my high school buddy became a boxing matchmaker for Don King. So I was involved with boxing when I first started. And that's where the parent company comes from, Top Contenders, Inc. That was actually the parent company. And then after that, I was involved in the music business, the entertainment business, and believe it or not, the comedy business. And we could go down the line from guys from back in the days I used to work with, like Otto and George, God rest his soul, that passed away in the United States, and, you know, Big Frankie D'Amico, just guys that are just like the early stages of comedy shows, you know, back in the early 80s. And special place in my heart for comedy. So yeah, we'll be talking. We'll definitely be talking.
I mean, the 80s were technically, I mean, that's the heyday of the comedy, you know. Like I came in later on in 91 on a dare is how I started with a couple of bikers who I was working for the city of Winnipeg. I used to have a bandana and shades, and they called me Savage. And I used to just fool around with some of the impressions, and they entered me in a contest. And who argues with bikers, if you know what I mean? So I got in there, but my question to you, I'm gonna flip over from the comedy thing to the wrestling thing, because I'd like your opinion on something, and it's something you sparked when you were talking about you didn't want to have a show without an audience, because comedy and wrestling, they are 1000% audience based. It's like telling jokes to a brick wall. Like, it just doesn't happen. But how do you think today's performers, and I'm going to use performers because they have to perform now without an audience, how do you think they're faring in this?
It's a tough road. It's very challenging. I mean, myself as a vision with wrestling, you don't want to do a show where there's not an audience, because I look back and I base, you know, I'm old school, you know, so I look at the 80s and 90s. And I remember, for example, you know, I'll use Macho Man, for example. When his music came out, just the first 4 notes, those crowds, they were on their feet. They didn't even see him yet, but they were on their feet. And you knew right away somebody was coming out with a cowboy hat on, very flamboyant, with the threads and everything else, and had a beautiful lady on his arm. If it was Elizabeth, Sherry, whatever the case was. And very rare he was out. But the excitement, and it kept building up till he got to the ring, and he got to the ring. That's what I'm looking for. That's when I talk about old school wrestling, the excitement from back in those days. But then you got to change a little bit because we're in 2020, which is a different style. You know, I mean, I did an interview last night on the radio, and back in the days when I grew up, my idols were like Bruno Sammartino, Pedro Morales, that old school wrestling. That's why I grew up. Bob Backlund, you know, WWF guys, you know, and the guys from down south, you know, Blackjack Mulligan, Lanza. Those were my guys. But if you look at the average wrestler nowadays, they're about 30 years old. Is probably like a good average age. Go back 15 years ago when they were 15 years old, when they were growing 20 years ago, their idols were The Rock and John Cena.
Yeah.
They never had that cultivation of what I call wrestling that started, like, I mean, it's been here for, you know, almost 100 years, more or less, but that tradition of like the 60s and 70s and those old 1-hour flare matches, and really where they wrestle, you know, nowadays, you know, not getting off subject, it's all that 50-50 and doing a 450 off the top in the first 10 seconds. That's not wrestling. Wrestling is being able to sit back, tell a story, and really just cultivate the story. And if it's a live event, you want to give them a hook where they want to come back when you're back there in a couple of months. And the same thing with the TV show. You want a cliffhanger where they're like, I got to watch this next week. Either I got to watch it live or tape it. That's the excitement I'm trying to do. And it is a challenging time. That's one reason why. And Florida's doing fairly well right now in regards to sales, both pay-per-view and ticket sales. I do believe that we'll do very, very well with it. And I think the timing was perfect. But I refuse to do a show without that audience. It just
Well, it's kind of I think,
it's not the same to me. It's not what you're seeing on some of these companies right now. It's not wrestling to me. It's not.
Yeah, and I think the audience is the reward, really. I understand, like you're saying, paying top dollar for guys. I mean, I think this is just a personal thing. If you're trying to pay them the best they can to their ability out the $20-$30 mark, they're going to put that effort in for you no matter what, because they know you're putting an effort into them. But going into, like, to me, I'm just thinking, going back, like you're talking about the music. You hear Hogan's first bar, like the hair on my arm's already standing up thinking about when he was coming out for Sergeant Slaughter or things like that. But to me, that's missing now. And I kind of laugh at, like, let's say, I mean, like him or not, Roman Reigns, he still can't get over and there's not an audience. He's terrible. Like, there's no personality in today's personalities. And I think that's the mistake.
Behind the scenes, and this is my opinion as a booker owner over the years, my opinion is, and I told my talent that comes on board, let's sit back and just have fun. It's a roller coaster ride, but be yourself. There's no script for promos. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, do what you have to do. And I've seen behind the scenes in the last 15, almost 20 years where it's more and more like, these are the exact words you have to do. And if you screw up, you're going to be penalized. And that's not wrestling. That's not what it was about. You know, back in the days when these guys came out, Superstar Billy Graham, whatever, with the Grand Wizard, those were from the heart. I mean, it might have been the character, but natural character. Where nowadays, you know, we're superhero characters that are 100% choreographed, and I don't like it. I personally, it's not wrestling to me. It's not.
Yeah. Like, here's a funny example, and Hannibal, you'll understand. Tony probably hasn't seen the little promo I did with a buddy of mine dressed as Hogan and Mankind.
Yes, I did, actually.
Oh, you did? Okay. So, again, that's totally off the cuff. We went into a ring with CWE there. Danny Duggan, Danny Warren, let us use his facility to do some fun stuff. And they looked at me and said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm just going to start. You know, and we did 3 different takes, and we took the best of the 3. But I agree with you 100%. The more you try to script people, it comes off very fake. And the audience isn't stupid.
Go back to the old days, and I'll just throw a name out there, and I won't say anything. When you think of Ultimate Warrior, what do you think of? You hear his music, and you know this guy is going to be running to the ring, around the ring, on top rope, shaking rope. That's the excitement.
Yeah.
That's what the fans want. It's not there today. It's not.
Yeah, there's no pump.
No, there's no fun. And these guys are not the life-size characters, like the bigger than normal lifetime characters. We as performers or as professional wrestlers, we are that everyday person like Superman or an Iron Man that's a comic figure, but we're the reality of it. And people could call us, they could touch us, they could feel us. So they have that special attachment to us. And I don't feel it's there in wrestling anymore. I just don't feel that bigger than life cartoon character is there that people could really relate to. Not on the personal level. You know, it's just, like I said, too scripted. It's too, like, you see some of the guys on TV, you could tell that they're nervous just by their actions.
Yeah.
They're stiff. They're just stiff. Just talking, they're stiff. You know, relax. Just, you know, let the cameras do what they have to do and become creative.
The only time I ever get stiff is when Lana comes on.
Tony, you're going to have to appear on the Hannibal TV where we have more time in the future, because we only have about a minute left with you and Kyle, because this show has to wrap at 6:55 total.
Just give me 1 second.
Do you want to say something, Kyle, since you can't? Oh, is this the title?
This is the ladies' title that we just got in. I'm going to debut it here tonight. It's a 5-tier belt. It's a heavy sucker, but it's a 5-tier belt. All the belts are made in red, white, and blue, and the heavyweight is in black. So there's different ones for Intercontinental. This is actually the woman's belt made in white, and it has the NAWA name on it. And there's 4 side plates that the champion eventually have their name put onto the belt. And you know, the reason why I debuted this tonight is because you're going to have Lindsay on tonight, and as you know, Amber's going to be in the final for the female heavyweight championship. So I think it would be an honor to debut it on your show. This just came in this week, and you're very proud of it. It's a heavy sucker too, by the way. It is.
Oh yeah, I don't know if Amber's going to be able to carry it. She's strong, but she's
this might weigh more than she does, to be honest with you. I mean, I can't carry myself sometimes. I'm like, lugging around, but yeah. So yeah, I'm really proud. I'm really honored, and thank you again for taking your time out and having us on your platform. Wish you all the best of luck, and looking forward to seeing you in Daytona as an interviewer down here. Appreciate it.
Definitely. And Tony, hopefully you can come on my my main channel before, where we're not as time restricted. Kyle, we only have about a minute. Is there anything you want to say within a minute? Thank you very much, Tony.
No, pleasure.
Kyle, are you there? I don't think Kyle can even hear us. Tony, what's the screen? Oh, there he is. Can you hear me now, Kyle? Okay, I think we've lost Kyle. Tony, you want to just plug the social media for the NAWA before you go here?
Sure. I mean, Twitter and Instagram, NAWA_wrestling, the Facebook website, www.nawawrestling.com. If anyone wants to reach me personally, promoters, wrestler, Tony Capone, NAWA on Facebook is the easiest way. If someone wants to get to the office, info@nawawrestling.com. Watch us. This is going to be an iconic event. December 19th, Ocean Center, Daytona Beach, Florida, in conjunction with Fight. So either way, be there. It's going to be an iconic event. That's all I could say.
Old school wrestling, that's what we need. We need to get away from this choreographed stuff and the gymnasts and back to the hard-hitting action. So I'm glad you've came up with this concept.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Much respect. Thank you, Hannibal. Thank you. And Jerry, same to you, my man. Thank you.
Take care. Nice meeting you, Tony.
Likewise. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Jimmy, do you want to wrap this up for us?
How much time do I have?
Well, to give your plugs, you have about a minute. Then I'm going to have to give the closing plugs.
Then you will. Well, first of all, I'll just say once again, I'd like to congratulate you on picking this up. I think it's fantastic platform for you. You're one of the few. Let me just use this analogy. You'll understand. You're like the Don Cherry out there. You like to tell it like it is, and you don't give a rat's rear end what people say about it. And I think that's important in today's media concepts. Is you're willing to tell it like it is and take the heat if need be, and you're always willing to come back. You asked me to do a little Hogan thing for you, so maybe we'll just end it with that, and then I'll let you do your thing. So hang on for a sec. Well, you know something, Hulkamaniacs. I've been up and down the internet, brothers, and I've been looking at all the interviewers running around all over the wild World Wide Web, man. And there's only one guy I know who can take the scalpel, man, and cut it right through, right down to the heart, and that's the Hannibal TV. So what you gonna do when the largest arms in the world and Hannibal run wild on you?
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to the first show from the Hannibal TV show. And I think we're about to close here, so I'll get into the end of it. The show can be also heard on the Barn Burner Radio Network on its 122 platforms. Download the Zingo app to watch it. Check out barnburner.ca for all the news about their programming. Barn Burner, you can watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. I am at Twitter and Instagram at the Hannibal TV or at Devin Hannibal on Twitter. And we are on Facebook at the Hannibal TV. So you can follow us there. YouTube.com/the Hannibal TV has all of my news updates, shoot interviews with countless famous wrestlers, and my interviews are interactive. I'm actually going to be doing one tonight with Lindsay Snow from the United Wrestling Network, who's also going to be on the NWA card. So I thank you. These shows are going to get better as time goes on, and I hope that one day they're in studio. So any feedback, just send me the message on social media, and thehannibaltv.com has all the information. So thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.